We will call to order at 5:06 this evening when we stand for pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we will move on to item C, which is public comment. We do offer a hybrid approach for public comment. First priority is in person. We do not have anybody with us this evening. Is there anybody online? There's no one online either. So we'll move right on to public comment for today. We'll go right to item D, which is minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the June 21st, 2023 minutes? Motion.
Second.
Thank you. All, or discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next item is correspondence received, 6/20/2023 to 7/17/2023. We don't have anything included in our packet this week. Always take the opportunity to remind our community partners to please reach out to us. If you have any questions or comments using our contact form, it's at the bottom of our homepage of our website. Great opportunity to ask questions or get additional information. And we do respond with a complete answer as soon as we can. So that's really been a great tool for us, and we hope that people continue to use it. We'll move right on to reports. F1 is chair report. I have nothing specific to share this evening, so we'll go right on to town council liaison report.
Nothing to report.
All right. Any questions for Don? All right, Board of Education liaison report. All right, excellent. Any questions for that? 1928 building committee liaison report. Chris unfortunately with us, but he did respond. There was nothing in particular to share with the building committee this evening. So we'll move right on to owner's rep report.
Okay, so for us, the first thing is we submitted state change order number 3 to the owner for signature. So once we get that back, we'll submit it to the state. The second item I had was state payment requests. So we submitted payment request number 2 back in April to the state for both Farmington High School and for the central office. The town, as far as I know, still has not received payment for that. We put in a request in to see what the status update was. So what's the state response to us with where it is, and if the town receives it, then we go ahead and prepare and submit payment request number 3. We meet weekly still with the professional team, so ourselves, ONG, TSKP, to review the status of submittals, RFIs, and change orders, so we can all gain an understanding of critical items that need responses in order to prevent project or schedule delays. So we're continuing to do that every Thursday. In terms of FF&E and technology, we are still having weekly meetings with the owner and TSKP to review furniture and technology selections. For the most part, we have everything chosen and selected. TSKP is working on putting together the bid documents for both of those packages for both the high school and central office. We're hoping to have the bid documents substantially complete by the end of August. We still have our meetings with the state scheduled for end of October, beginning of November. And once we get authorization from the state, then we can go to bid. So we're still on track to hit all those dates as of right now. And then lastly, we've been doing weekly site walks with ONG and TSKP to address any issues that are occurring in the field, and also look at and monitor the construction progress. The last thing that I did want to mention is that I know we have a lot of change orders to review tonight. So just in terms of owner contingency and where we're at, we started at about 6.2 million. And currently with all the items that are to be discussed and reviewed and hopefully approved tonight, you're still hovering at about 6.1 million left in owner contingency. So you guys are in a pretty good spot for where we are in the project. And that's a net number of adds and credits. So we've had some credits and change orders that have come back to us, and that's kind of where we're standing. Overall, we're in pretty good shape. I don't know if I missed anything.
No, I think that's good. I think, you know, one of the big credits was right at bid time, right? We got some money back when we went back out to bid for a couple of those small items, about a $400,000 ad. So it really helped our contingency bucket back out of the CM side and went into the contingencies.
Just a quick question for me, the state meeting that in October, is that something that there's gonna be the approval required in preparation for that?
Yeah, so I have a whole schedule laid out of that basically backtracks from that date and when like it aligns with the building committee meeting, because that's when you guys need to approve things. So I have that all, I'm tracking all of that. And as far as
Was it for FF&E?
for FF&E and technology, yeah, so that's all set.
Okay, all right, perfect. I just want to make sure if we need to make any adjustments to schedule and accommodate that. but
Yeah, if
we're
something-
aligning them.
Yeah, if something comes up, I'll let you know, but as of right now, we're on track for those dates.
Okay.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Maybe not quick. No, so for some of us, especially me, and I know others haven't been through projects like this in the past. Is this, I know you said we're doing good, we've used, maybe 100,000 out of the 6.2 million, and I'm sure that's a moving number. But at where we are at the stage of our project now, should we be expecting any big changes? And I know we dive into details more in our decision-making group, and obviously we have some tonight. But like, is there more unknowns other than when we get into the demolishing of the old building? Maybe ONG has some insight on this, but just so we have an idea of the scale, and at what point do we pretty much have turned every rock over, every leaf? We know what's going on. We've found every little thing that we may have missed. At what point do we feel comfortable that the change orders will be minimal at best?
Right, so I think it's a great question, and I'll ask the professional team to chime in as we, but I'll try to tee off the answer a little bit in that, we've just gone through the exercise in the communication subcommittee to talk about where we are in the project, completion wise, and you're right around 36% complete with the new construction, right? Enabling is done. So there was a lot of site prep work. Most of our unknowns come before we get out of the ground, so we don't know what we're going to find when we start digging. So, Nelson will caution me and the group to talk about when we do get into demo of that building. We don't know what we're going to find. 900 wing is central office. That's all a renovation, and so we typically see a whole lot more change orders in the process in this percent complete timeframe for a renovation than we would for new construction. We were just talking about possibly, and we talked a little bit about after the OEC meeting, is putting some trend information together for this committee for the next time we meet to say, how is Farmington, how does Farmington size up to other projects that we've had in the past for new construction? So maybe to give you a little bit better percentage of where we typically see owner contingency spend at 36%. Next month will be a little bit higher. So maybe percentage wise comparatively, we think you're doing great. I think there's some things that a lot of credits that have come back which have helped the situation. So I think you're probably pretty close on track to where we are in terms of unknowns. As far as what's to come, we know that there's changes still to come with the 1928 building and the effect of that. So there'll be service fees that need to be talked about for TSKP and design and their consultants, and whatever the cost differences are comparatively to the impacts of the 1920 building. So we have I think that'll have an impact on your owner contingency. I think that we've got, I don't know, Nelson, how many under review PCO change orders under review did we talk about it in the OEC meeting that we know are coming down the pipe, but we don't really have the whole order of magnitude yet?
They're about between 12 and 15. There are 5 that are owner initiated.
Yeah.
Changes that TSKP has to design and provide us a document where we can actually price it out. But just to reiterate or add on to your point, I always, Mark knows these discussions that we have in the trailer. I caution at this stage yet, we're out of the ground, we're out of this, we have the structure closed in. A lot of the coordination issues, design or when we've been modeled, a lot of that has been known at this point. But when we have mass demolition of a building, so the renovation has it's going to have its unknowns. I'm not terribly concerned with 900 per se, but where this building sits, we have also tennis courts that are going to sit in the footprint of the building. We don't know what the soil conditions are. We're in discussions with the 1928 building committee and starting that coordination process because now the building actually juts out a little bit more into, it's not that clean rectangular box. So when they did an addition, how did they do that addition? Did they eliminate structure? We could see, where we think the exterior walls are, but are they in fact, full exterior walls? So there's going to be some changes there, potential changes, unknown at this point. There are a few changes that are coming through that are owner requested changes. So at this point in the project, it's probably more owner driven, with requests that we know are coming down the pike. But at this point in the project, 36% out of the ground. Scope related issues, there are still a few that were tracked from our internal GMP. But on the owner side, I personally think you guys are really good shape. And those offsets, the value engineering that actually stayed in place, or the value management, the list that everybody went through, and even though we have the money, these are still good things to do that will help the situation, which a lot of towns don't have that out.
I also want to add the 6.2 million is specifically for the high school project. You have another, I think it's around 2, I don't know the exact number off the top of my head, but you have another owner's contingency within the central office project as well. So for issues that come up with that, you still have another bucket of money to pull from.
What I've seen in the past, we're not owners rep on this side, CSG is, but sometimes there's a risk with the technology. Could be over budget, not over budget, but there could be more equipment that you're buying. And we have that beneath. So depending on how those bids come in, state bidders list or hard bid, we've seen it where you might have to dip into contingency because of that. But for the items, sometimes there's supply chain issues with wire. I'm just going to throw out like a wireless access, which you think it's not a lot of money, but you multiply it by, how many units that the school normally would have. Those are now at this point in the project, those are the risks that you still have, but being out of the ground with interior finishes taking place, that's a good thing. And the utilities, which there have been, we've been reporting at our OAC meetings with, we encountered some existing utility issues behind the library with electrical that wasn't identified, so we have to reroute some stuff there. Also Connecticut water, there's at the 900 wing. The connection wasn't an 8-inch, it was a 6-inch. But Connecticut water came back saying that there was sufficient pressure. So there's some changes there that will probably result in a wash credit. But now all the utilities have been identified. Those risks, when you're out of the ground, you barely dipped into your contingency, you're in good shape.
Thank you.
Mark, did I hear you say that there are change orders that'll be a result of the 1928 building?
Yes, so the redesign of the 1928 building impacts the current design of the high school. And so the expectation and there was a exercise done with actually a credit order of magnitude that came back from the initial demoing less, there's less movement there, but there's also all of the changes that are required and the tennis courts get moved and those kinds of things are going to be an impact on the design team and the costs of the design team to create those changes in that design, right? So we don't know what the ads and the credits will come out to, but there'll be something that may impact your contingency negatively or positively because we don't have a 100% response for you at that point yet. But it'd be things for you to approve on both sides.
So do we feel the comparison is a benefit to us? Like, I just don't know, our project is too distinct for us, like, if you come forward and say, well, this project of similar size and
Right.
scope was here as far as change orders are concerned compared, or for their contingency or.
I'm hoping that I kind of want to do that research a little bit and come back and be able to identify. I hope I'm not putting our team in a spot where we won't be able to provide real data, but I mean, it's all, somewhat public information.
Right,
So
yeah.
I thought we could kind of put together something, or at least to even show, here's how much was spent on the job, over, the course of the whole job. Owners at some point typically want to know at what point can I spend down some of my contingency? I'd like to do this, or I'd like to do that as part of the high school, but that, that's a different discussion with every different vote.
Right, yeah, that's just why I'm wondering, like, is a comparison helpful for us or not,
Right.
or that.
Right.
Give us data that's not.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, this is one of the largest projects, so it's hard to compare. And a lot of other projects are renovations. So if you recall, we kind of tried to do this exercise early on in terms of comparative, like we do a comparison across the state over the last X amount of years. It was hard to compare projects of this magnitude.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts on that? Do a good job. Okay. Let's move right on to the architect's report.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. I have a few things to talk about, some of which have been covered, where you are with the completion of the project, where you are with your contingencies. Personally, Johnny, I think you're in a good spot. I do. I think this project has been managed really well. The construction pace is really fast. And that's a good thing. But there's some danger here in any kind of revisions or thoughts about making a change, because it would be a good idea to put a device here or add something there. It's going to get to a point where it's not going to be a good idea to make those kinds of adjustments, because we don't want to be taking stuff out. As long as we catch it in time, it's great. But we don't want to be tearing stuff out that you've already installed, because it would be a good idea. It's an expense that would be difficult to capture, because the state would not want to reverse those kinds of changes. So we just have to be cautious about that. Change orders do come from different sources. We'll address them when we talk about change orders a little bit later. That's going to continue. It's going to continue through the end of the job, and I predict even after you occupy the building. Because someone inevitably will say, gee, I wish that blankety blank had happened. And then it will come back to the committee and say, after you started occupying, do we have any contingency money left? Maybe there should be an improvement done here. It's just the nature of the work. So one of the items I know is on your agenda is a fee adjustment for us to do some plan changes, and I think 5 or 6 areas of the building, one of which is the media center. So we're ready to jump into those things. Again, the sooner we get them done, the better off we all are in making sure the changes occur and we don't end up tearing things out. We had a good discussion about the 1928 building at the last OAC meeting. Silver Petrocelli shared with us their plan. Well, actually, they did more than that. They found existing drawings of the old building, which is extremely helpful. We know what the drawings are of the original 1928 building, so we know the delineation of the structure. And so we were able to, I took a red pencil to the set of drawings that are in ONG's trailer, and I delineated based upon those old drawings what the dividing line is between the site of the high school versus the building limit. And so we're going to communicate that further with the Silver Petrocelli team, and then keep ONG in the loop as well. We also had a discussion about how the building is going to be turned over. So I believe what ONG's strategy is to turn over the building section by section, in the same way that they've been building it section by section. Starting with A wing, which is scheduled to be completed April 9th, 2024. It'll be here before you know it. And then roughly a month apart, they'll be delivering each area of the building. So, and I wanted to see that schedule, and I asked Evan, you did forward that schedule for those wings, because I wanted to see how that compares to furniture delivery. So I had a conversation with Susan Pinckney in our office. She's writing the specs for the furniture purchase and delivery. She said, oh God, I hope they don't ask us to have the bidders deliver the furniture in 1 month segments. That's going to end up costing more money, because the vendors will, ideally the vendors want to deliver all at once and arrange the furniture all at once. And according to her schedule, and I think Sam, you know, because you've been participating in the FF&E discussion, her schedule says FF&E installation starts on July 17th next year, and it's finished with installation by August 9th. And then we'll do the punch list for the furniture. So ideally that falls within the window of your range of deliveries for the classroom blocks, and then ends up, the last area is the admin area, area E. And then area F, which is the 900 ring, will happen later. So that kind of discussion is important to continue to have in the OAC meetings, just to make sure that furniture is bid with those dates exactly indicated for bidders to know when they're expected to deliver. And so that ONG can know when to expect those kinds of deliveries.
Can I just clarify one thing?
Sure.
You know, you noted that there's only one C of O, only one certificate of occupancy that will be. And are you gonna be looking for TCOs of each space? For their second?
Yeah, there's a section in our schedule for FF&E. Okay, in the summertime. Yeah, because it's gonna be more expensive if they were to phase it. FF&E and with one TCO, we have to have that TCO to start getting people into the building.
Right. So when we say turnover, the owner's not gonna be able to occupy A while we're working in B. Furniture could occupy the space.
But at least they can say we're done. You'll probably expect us to punch out area A, and then you will give a key to Sam and say, take over. But you may not be able to occupy it for building use.
Correct. I just wanted to make that clarification.
Yeah.
Expect that.
And I think that's all I wanted to report.
Any questions? Clarification? All right, why don't we go right on to construction manager report? And so you have an introduction to do as well.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick gave Devin some photos, so I just want to introduce Stephen Law. He's our intern here for the summer.
Yeah, I'm going into my senior year at Central Connecticut State University. This is my second year with ONG, so it's my first building committee meeting, so still learning a lot. I'm excited to be here, so nice meeting you all. Thank you.
Actually, these pictures were, it's part of my report, but Stephen was the one that actually was able to get the pictures put together. So on this one, you see the hydromobile, which is the scaffolding, the masonry has started. It's actually wrapped around on the back side of that building. This picture was taken about a week ago. So you see the precast spans. It's a little tough because the pictures inset into that document, but precast band, stair tower to the left, the ground base CMU has started, and basically they're in full force now. All the material has been delivered for the masonry. Next picture, please. Interior wise, this is building B. So you see the metal stud interior walls, sprinkler lines. You already see the insulated mechanical, or those are the drainage lines. Sprinkler lines are the black pipe in the ceiling area. All the spray fireproofing is done. Pipe ductwork is being insulated. So that section of the building is fully weather tight, except for the exterior walls, but we're able to full wire and insulate because that building is dry. The water that you see there is from the skylight areas that we're putting temp protection in, because the skylights are coming in late August, early September with this monsoonal weather. Just weather comes in and it migrates to the adjacent slabs, but everything is being protected and cribbed up off the floor. Next floor, please. This is a picture of area, this is the kitchen area, the wood shop. So auto and wood shop area. So they just finished the spray fireproofing in that area, and the tin knockers, the ductwork installation will commence. Actually, as of this week, the sprinkler lines have gone in. That's gymnasium area. So the gymnasium is now whether the roof is fully installed, and they've gone to the adjacent area to the left. They'll be pulling off site for a week, and then they'll be coming back to do the auditorium. They have to bring a crane in to get the insulation over the auditorium area. So that's that'll be done in August timeframe. So from that vantage point, you see the double gym. So your gym is not going to be that large, but beyond where that man lift is, or that scissor lift, that's where your dividing wall is, the operable wall. So all the support steel is in for that. Next photo. This is the auditorium. This is actually the stage area that you see all the conduits, and beyond you see the stage opening. You see the catwalk, and then the auditorium proper where the gentleman is with that piece of equipment. They've been bringing the subgrades up. First, they have to put all the electrical conduit for an auditorium space. You have a lot of low voltage, a lot of conduit for sound wiring, teledata. So there's a labyrinth underneath that stage. See a portion of it, and now that's all as of today. That's all up to subgrade. Then they'll start the vapor barrier, and then they'll do the slab on grade 4 within the next few weeks. Next one. This is a picture from the top of the roof. So those are the sawtooth skylights. We have 6 scissor lifts in there. Actually, CSG took a picture yesterday inside that area. What takes a long time. So even though structural steel has finished, they have to detail, they have to weld that skylight, which takes about 4 weeks to do. So all those crossing members get welded. They'll be doing that for another week or two. but we have 6 scissor lifts in there. We gotta get that work done so we can get the slab on grade below done. And the acoustical panels, which is on one side of that skylight, they started installing them on the amphitheater skylight, which you don't see in this picture. It's off towards the back right-hand side. I don't know if there's another picture. So this is the north parking lot. We'll be paving that in 2 weeks. So for the start of school, contractors will park in the north parking lot. You see the football field towards the back, the scrim. You can see the top of the visitor bleachers over there. So all the granite curving that's installed. So what we'll do for the start of school, we'll bring in the fence, the construction fence onto the parking lot side, and that walkway that the Highland resident or student walkers use, that will still be in place, same route. We'll connect it back to the fence, and then all the parking will go back to the school, the student parking areas. Currently, the contractors are using the student parking lot at the top of the hill. And that's it on photos. I'd like you to pull up the other document that says those 2 images there. I'm gonna put somebody on the spot here. Michael Scott brought in a group of students. So your amphitheater had its first class session. UHeart students. There's Michael pointing to the skylight. You want to give them a brief description of who these students are? And
That's a summer program from University of Hartford. Some of them are high schoolers, some of them are recent high school graduates that are about ready to start their first year in the architecture program. We have an ongoing relationship with one of those professors to do a field trip with them. We take them through our office, we show them the project and the rather lengthy process in this instance that we went through on this project with you all, and then we take them out in the field and actually show them the building. And I will say that amphitheater is already performing admirably. It'll be a very nice spot for your student body. And I should just return the favor, ONG for excellent hosts for that program. Give them a good introduction to the construction side of things. We don't get much of that in our school.
yeah, well, thank you for having them. And that just dovetails into at our OEC meetings. We've had the students last year, and we're trying to broaden it out to the IAR students and the Westwood students. So the principal did reach out to me today, and we're going to have discussions as far as the logistics and what opportunities we could provide. They're going to call me in September. So we're ONG Builds is on summer vacation right now, but it's going to be back in full force. And school has been really enthusiastic behind it, and it's good to get the kids in there to see what's actually taking place. And I think some kids are actually change their minds and see the careers that are professional careers and trades. So these were all architectural students, and
You might have changed their mind on a few of them. Something looking long at them.
maybe a few of them.
It's that fancy trailer.
We all like the trailer. Those are the things that we're building a building, but we're also using it as a classroom space. That's all I have to report on. Coordination, we're working with TSKP and CSG weekly. Pretty much we're on time and on budget. So yes, that's what I want. Richard always.
Statement, the important statement. And I think we need to make sure these opportunities, when we talk about our next newsletter, we've always talked about how we highlight these for the community. I think that's super important. So make sure we don't lose sight of that. I know we wanted the project status and those kind of things, and I think we can do that. I think we pay a lot of attention to this work that you guys are doing.
And there is also a newsletter that we do send out to the school. And maybe that could be shared, some of it on the website, but, definitely, there's a lot taking place, a lot going on. But good things.
Excellent. Any questions? Yes.
I have a question. And we discussed this at the OAC meeting, so I know what you're gonna say, but for the benefit of everyone, there's been a lot of rain lately. In fact, so much rain that I was asked by another client, are we still designing to meet 500-year storms? Or have the state changed it to 1,000-year storms? No, we're still designing to meet 500-year storms as of right now. But there's been a lot of water across the site. Talk about erosion control and what you've been doing to make sure that that isn't getting out of control.
Well, yeah, with the amount of rains that we've actually had, very little of it come off the site, which soil erosion controls are not designed for 6 inches of water in a 24-hour period. That's just not the way it's designed. So it's Iapaluccio, who is a site trade contractor. They have engineered soil and erosion controls. It gets inspected 24 hours after every rain event. We actually track it in AConnects. We send out if there's any deficiencies, but they've been on top of it. When their engineer comes out, there's very few things that are noted. I personally take it on Sunday when we had actually flash floods came out here in the detention pond. It was at the top, at the rear, but that's how it's designed. It was starting to flow into the catch basin, and that's designed for, I believe, 50 years because it's temporary, right? So, no, it's the amount of rain that we've had. It's good that it's being maintained on site. And then when we do have an event like this past weekend, we add additional provisions from where we think that it may fail. So George, our superintendent, has made additional adjustments. So it's doesn't make it easy when we have to constantly take out the rainwater. But again, we're not doing any sheetrock until we actually have. We're doing top of wall, which it doesn't matter, but when it's top of wall, but sheetrock that's up against the floor until we have the temporary skylights tucked in, then we'll do the sheetrock that we have been using mold resistant. So even if we did get some water, it just doesn't have the paper for it for mold to go on. And we're also protecting the ductwork and doing all the provisions that are written into our specification for the going beyond that. It's a challenge, but
You're managing.
it's what we do.
Right, thank you. Anything else? All right, excellent, thank you. All right, we'll go right on to communications subcommittee report. Just very quickly, we did have a communications meeting just prior to this meeting, touched on a few things. Specifically, we did an initial review, some frequently asked questions based on the current state of the project, where we are right now. So we've identified, I think, 4 or 5 key questions we thought the community would be interested in knowing about, provide some additional detail about that. A little wordsmithing to do around that, but we'll get that right back up on our website. Living document as we've always managed our questions. So again, if you start to hear things within the community or questions keep arising, let us know, and we can certainly work on that and update that document. But I think it's a good place for us to just store information that are common questions. We also talked a little bit about providing status out to the community as well. So a snapshot of progress and what's our best way to do that. I mean, we received a very detailed update here. We have tons of details about that, but is there a way we can show that snapshot to the community that makes sense, that's not overwhelming, it's kind of an interesting balancing act that we're trying to accomplish here. So we did a first round today in the committee. We're gonna go back and make some revisions. So we're gonna continue that conversation. When we feel comfortable with that, we'll bring it back to this whole committee to review. So you guys can take a look and understand our thinking behind that. Again, it's just very similar to our thinking even when we were, pre-referendum. It was, remember, we were tracking our progress as we went along. It's just a nice way to make sure the community felt engaged and knew where we were in the status of the project overall without having to look through a lot of detail to get that. So something that we're going to continue to do, and then we have touched very quickly on the next newsletter as well. So we're going to start thinking about content for that. We're still a little ways away, but we'll keep talking about that in timeline for it. Anything else that I missed? Communication. Any questions on that? All right, F9 financial subcommittee report. We obviously have our meetings just prior to this meeting. So last Friday we met, and as always, we do a full review of the financials, and that is after it has been fully reviewed by our professional partners. So we are in that multi-level review process that we're performing. It seems to be working, I think, really well in preparation for these meetings. So all the, as we mentioned, always mentioned, the approvals that we'll do this evening have been reviewed by the financial subcommittee prior to this. And then we did include, I think, in the package, right, the chart, the financial tracking report is in here as well.
Should be there. I don't know if it was printed just because our agendas are like
Huge.
hundreds of pages now.
Sent out
This
to
is
you.
a condensed
Yeah.
version.
So we'll always send out to you just in reference, just another, something that we use at every one of our meetings is kind of tracking to how we're tracking against kind of a projected budget or projected spend and where we're getting, we're right where we need to be, which is a nice view where we're going to keep monitoring that, and we'll keep sharing that report with you as we move forward. If there's anything,
No, I think when we get to the change orders, we're gonna go through those in a little bit more detail, so we can kind of discuss.
yeah, some additional
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
And then anything for financial reporting updates?
No updates to that.
All right, that is our full report list. So we'll move right on to new business. This is item G1. Can I get a motion to approve the following invoice package for Farmington central offices?
Second.
All right, we'll open it up for discussion. Stan, you want to walk us through these just really quickly?
Yeah, so our CSG's invoice, that's just our standard monthly invoice, nothing too different about that one. And then there's one change order actually for central office. This resulted from an owner requested change, that we were notified that the bipolar ionization is no longer used, and within the district, or has never been used in the district. So we're just deleting the system out of both the central office and the high school. But because the central office is a separate project number, we had to do a separate change order for the central office. So this is just a credit back of a little over $3,600 to delete the procurement and installation of the bipolar ionization for the central office.
They're electronic here, there's that going, it's with the HVAC units that are moving.
That's something, where you were part of these conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, well, I think the whole decision making for part of this conversation. All right, any questions on that? Further discussion? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item G2, and I have a motion to approve the following invoice package for Farmington High School. Motion?
Second.
All right, we will open this one up for discussion.
Okay, so CSG's invoice, that's just again our standard monthly invoice, same for TSKP unless you guys have anything to add to your invoice.
No.
And then Again, IES is our commissioning agent, so there's influences for that, for them to come out here. And I believe they've been looking at the AVB systems, is that correct, Nelson?
Yes.
And then IMTL again is our materials testing agent, so they come out, sign it at the trailer and they do the testing on whatever's going on that day, so concrete, soil compaction, things like that. And then Nelson, do you want to go into detail about your pay app?
Well, I can,
Some
pay
highlights.
up is not
Highlights.
here.
Yeah,
Just the highlights would be good.
Primarily the structural steel, you know, the big costs in there, mechanically, a lot of the HVAC ductwork. Those for each area is, you know, in the $150,000 range. So the ductwork, insulation, mechanical, those are the large dollar amounts. There's site work as well. So structural steel, pretty much at 98%. So we send a pencil copy every month. Design team, TSKP does their review, with, as well as CSG. Previously, they were doing their review separately. We actually got together and did a review, walking the job site, that's now at this phase where you see a lot of the, okay, is it stored material? Is it material that's already installed? So a lot of the back and forth, it's more streamlined by actually having a walkthrough with all the professional partners. So, pencil copy came in, and then, it was adjusted down by roughly 200,000. The roofer wasn't aggressive, but he anticipated when they do their pencil copies, they projected they do it on the 20th of the month, projecting out to the end of the month. And at the end of the month, they didn't have the gymnasium fully tied in, they were building it at 100%. So we adjusted it down by roughly 200,000 compared to last month. Last month was 7 million, but this is still projecting on that chart that some finance committee gets, we're still below that much.
I'll take this kind of in sections a little bit. Anybody have any questions on that before we go to change orders? I think they're so far. All right. Let's do overview of change orders.
You want me to run through them, then if there's questions?
Yeah, maybe let's do it that way.
Yeah, right,
There's a
sure,
lot of
this-
them.
Yeah, because there's actually more than what you normally would. Last month, we didn't have any PCOs. So,
Yeah.
they were still under review. So now this is sort of 2 months worth of PCOs, give or take. So the first one, let's see.
That's just the bipolar ionization again, so it's.
Bipolar, right, so. Yeah, that's the one there. Is that the way you guys see that?
It's a
There it is.
37.
Okay. So PCO 10R, the reason why you see an R there was central office side, it's two different contractors. So you have Performance Plumbing and Heating on the central office side, you have Ferguson Mechanical on the high school side. So the pricing that they submitted was around 30,000. It wasn't full credit that they were supposed to provide in comparison with central office. So that was the credit would increase to 37,568. Same change. It's just to delete the air scrubbers or the bipolar ionization from the high school, and the high school has more units, so it's a larger dollar amount. PCO number 15R. This one was revised based on Cole Ronan's review. There were some costs that Ferguson was had originally under their original proposal that we went back and they revised it. They revised it down slightly, and final cost was 67,028. This was basically pipe size changes that was caught under the coordination process before the slab on grade was placed. So some of the work we actually directed the trades to do in time and material so that we wouldn't lose the schedule. being that this was a large change, it needed time to be vetted out by the design team. The pipe sizes needed to be the pipe sizes. Nothing was gonna change. It's required, based off of the coordination between, each of the consultants. So, so that one, now that it's in its final stage, came to $67,028, and it's all below slab. Physically can't see it, it's underneath the ground. So that's PCO number 15R, and it, the R means that it's been revised according to the review process. PCO number 18.
Can I ask a question about this one?
Yeah, sure.
Which one is the whole?
Nope, nope, go ahead.
Yep.
What would have distinguished this as? I guess, how is this not an error?
As far as design, like design or
Correct,
So it's not an, I'll answer that question.
okay,
It's not an error because it wasn't installed. It was caught during coordination, which is a normal part of the BIM coordination. Every trade proposes where they're gonna put their components. And it turned out that some pipe sizes had to change in order to get the capacities and the routing correct. So it was caught before it was actually implemented.
before it was ordered or?
correct.
What circumstances might have been different that would have tipped this into the error column?
If they had installed it. It would have been there.
Okay. So if we move forward with what was designed,
Correct.
you ordered that, you installed it, didn't work, that would have been an error.
That would have been.
And the state fully reimburses this because it wasn't installed
Gotcha.
and reworked. But the BIM coordination, it's specifically done, this one where it caught the stuff below the slab, but there are changes that result out of the BIM coordination process when two pipes hit one another and they have to reroute it into a different route, which creates a longer run, which more sticks of pipe or a larger diameter of pipe. So it was caught in the appropriate stage.
Is that implementation piece that the determining factor is whether or not there's an error?
Oh, yeah, that's definitely one of the definitions of an error.
So if designed and then built, that might distinguish it as an error versus design and caught would not be an error.
That's correct. I mean, even if this was done differently during the design and bidding period, you would have had paid more on bid day. But this was caught before the actual installation was done.
Thank you. Yes.
I'll be, because there's other questions. PCO number 18, it was so PR stands for proposal request. These are owner driven, not primarily owner driven, but it's a request for pricing. Change. These are the electric charging stations where there were some charging stations near the high school. So the request was to consolidate it around the central office area. We did keep the provisions of, because the conduit was already ordered and on site. So in the future, the high school wants to have some electric charging stations in addition to these. There is a means out there because it was already bought in the bid at bid time, but these are to consolidate all the electric charging stations around the central office area. So small amount, which is 30,812, and good question.
How many charging stations will we have total? And I know you said some will be kind of built out, but not fully.
Is it 8 or
It's 8.
8?
So just like Nelson said, it's just the infrastructure here. This doesn't include the actual charging stations. It's just the infrastructure. So if the town wants to go ahead and install them later, they can. For all of the charging stations.
Conduits.
So the stations are not gonna be up and running at the.
I think
The electrical panel, everything that's capable of accepting the system is part of this.
I don't know if this is I think Eversource might be operating from incentives.
Yeah, I think there's green.
We've been working on that green effort.
Yeah.
We were about to put one in by the Staples House. And we pulled back on it, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to consolidate on this, because there's a one-time reimbursement at a percentage, but if we used it on the one station down there, we could not get reimbursed for anything we do up here.
Okay.
So we pulled back on that project and made some small changes to the conduits and the layouts here, so that when the town does move forward, and that's gonna be going through green efforts.
Okay.
This one, so PR number 3, this one was a large one. PSKP can add in, so this discussion, but the miscellaneous equipment, there's a spec section that specifically lists equipment such as goggle cabinets, buses for equipment.
So it's listed on the cover sheet.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
So just,
So I could actually go item by item here on your cover sheet here.
yes, if you go to the cover sheet of the change order, if you scroll through the big packet, Nelson. And you get to that particular change order.
I can go
Here, honestly, Nelson, you wanna go through it? You got it in front of you?
It's the welding curtain in the metal shop. Goggle cases, some counter mounted spray booths, not the big finishing room. Wood shop, fire blankets, glassware dishwashers, box trusses and pipe rings. So this is a pipe ring is a box truss and pipe rings are for lighting rigs and edge studio. So this scope ends up being a sort of a catch-all of a bunch of little pieces that pepper throughout the building. It's provided by general trades. It's a relatively complicated piece for a lot of little bits and parts that go into the building. Oftentimes these drop into the FF&E bucket or provided by owner or get moved from your existing school and put over. It takes a lot of coordination on the design team and bid scope and to try to capture all of this at bid time and one that coordinated within the bid schedule. So there was an attempt to capture some of it within allowance, capture some of it within the bid packages. And there's a gap of 106,000.
So we did carry out bid time or after bid time before the GMP was written on $25,000, which offset this change. It brought the change down by 25,000. But at scope time, it was where there was some goggle cabinets and then a lot of this bigger equipment was added in proposal.
But we, should this catch most of what, like the little items, or whatever, is there, are we to expect any more change orders of miscellaneous equipment, or should be this should be the bulk of it?
We've come pretty far with the FF&E package, so we've sussed a lot of this out. I'm aware of more change orders from this subcontractor that are in the ether. I suspect you'll see this subcontractor more in future meetings for toilet accessories, for instance. But I don't, this is one of the big catch-all, this and residential appliances ends up being sort of a weird mishmash of pieces and parts. So this is a big chunk. These are, the other thing I should say are these are things that you need to operate the educational programs in your school. You certainly don't need to buy them from O&G and their subcontractor, but you will buy them nevertheless. And we spent a lot of time on this change order arguing about it, but if you want O&G to provide it, it really became the time to approve this change order now. And you know, I don't think any of this is going to be cheaper in 6 months. Let's be very candid in that regard as well. So whether you move them from over there or bring them in, through a package that Susan may help you document. This, it's not gonna cost any better than this, I don't think.
It's still the same vendor that you'd be purchasing from the equipment from.
So with this particular change order, is there a reason why this is not identified as an omission? Given that you say these are things that we need.
Well, it's identified as an omission. This is one of the reasons contingency is in there. You, like I said, you could move some of this equipment over from and reuse it. You could buy it new through this particular subcontractor. You could buy it through a FF&E package. There are a variety of options there.
But what would distinguish why it wasn't identified in the drawings as either being moved or being purchased?
It's just coordinating against what you have and how much further we are along in the FF&E package now compared to where we were at bid time back in August and September.
Yeah, so the project has other buckets such as FF&E. There's also technology, which has a lot of stuff in it. This equipment could have fallen into the FF&E budget.
Which equipment in particular, or are you saying all of it, they could fit into an FF&E budget?
I think it sounds like most of it could fit into it.
Yeah, I'm saying all of it could.
Which still hasn't been finalized and bid out yet. So, however, it just seemed like a prudent time to add it to OG's scope now.
How much of the,
Just as an example, real quick, it's not that some items were just not included, it's just that some items either changed or maybe just weren't. The manufacturer, and someone can correct me if I'm misspeaking, but some of the manufacturers just weren't specifically called out at the time of bidding. So this is just to provide a further clarification, but things such as like the defibrillator cabinet, I know we decided to go with the semi-recessed, whereas before I believe they weren't recessed at all. I can't remember, but things like that have shifted a little bit.
so it's not that it was left out of the drawing.
Yeah,
It might have been
it's-
something in the substitution.
Correct.
But scope includes the contractors that bid on the job, qualified things at bid time. And said, because, right, so during bid time, there were some things they qualified, said, we didn't carry this because it wasn't
Clear.
clear or identified, or RFIs during the bid process. Some answers made it, some answers didn't through bid time, and or decisions weren't made. And so they excluded those things in their bid. We knew that there were some items that were gonna need to be carried, and so in the GMP, they carried a $25,000 allowance. It wasn't enough.
Is there any, so is this net 106, is it all equipment, or is there any that is ad services for design to incorporate, or any electrical, any change in MEPs related to what you need to do?
This has MEP, like.
So there's MEP, but no ad
Piece
services.
of equipment, not ad
Okay,
services,
so
so
just
piece of equipment.
10% of this that's MEP is what, roughly?
Very small percent.
Small. The majority of it
It's
is
the
the equipment
dishwasher.
itself.
The dishwasher.
Okay. What, as a clarifying,
I don't think, no, the dishwasher's in there, but I don't think there's any other trades in here except and Go for
Well, Ferguson, that is a small portion for the dishwasher, just to hook up this dishwasher.
Okay, all right.
That's the only.
My mistake. It's difficult to speak in absolutes about this project for sure, so I have to remind myself.
It's a very, yeah, just.
It's right there.
So the electrical portion is 1,850, so if that's just for the dishwashers to connect power to them.
so to help educate all of us on this committee, what would, in your minds collectively, constitute something that would feel as though it would be identified as an omission?
I'll give you an example. Perfect. So we find out that in a walkthrough by the building department, they say, I don't think your railings are, I don't think you provided a railing that was necessary here. It's clearly required by the building code. You should have known. Okay, that's an obvious omission, a professional omission. We should have included, we didn't include it.
Or, and to use that example too, if you had put a handrail in, but if you put it at 28 inches high,
And if
that would
they,
be an error.
and if they installed it, it would be an error.
Okay, but if you have it as a drawing and it's caught, then it's not an error, and there's no,
Yeah, if we do the review during shop drawings and we say it hasn't been fabricated yet, the fabricator wants to know, are you sure about this height? And we say, you're right, it should have been 6 inches higher. That we caught in time, so that would not.
and again, even if it was caught that you didn't have it, that would neither be an error or an omission because it would be picked up in time.
That's correct.
You did that error. Okay, so the timing of when those things are identified is a key determinant whether or not we would identify these as errors or omissions on either side.
I'd be happy to categorize those. as.
Okay, so that's helpful. Thanks.
Michael, we do try to categorize them on every one of these.
Well, that's what I do, and
That's why
I'm
you're
using it as an opportunity for all of us to be
Yeah.
better schooled.
Yeah.
How would we do that and why is it important?
Yeah, I'm trying to.
Is it
remember
just
that.
simply a marker where this lands? And, or is it coming out of a different, bucket to be paid?
Yeah, I think one example might have been one of the first change orders that came through with the height of the, right,
Something, the grease trap.
for the grease trap, right, and what, was required, I don't know if it was required by code or the height of the pipe, but we identified that as a omission or an error in the drawing specification, so,
That's correct.
yeah.
It was the pitch of the pipe. It was
That's
wrong.
Yeah.
And so we had simple drawings showing a certain pitch. It's clearly a bigger pitch was required by code.
And that didn't matter whether it was caught before it was done or not.
No, it needed to be done, we identified it
It was
as what,
identified before it was.
what,
done.
yeah, what.
So help me to clarify, so that's something where it is wrong in a drawing. And it is caught before it's done, but you identified it as an error.
We did,
So how does that help me to clarify what we're sharing here? And I don't mean to be a pain in the ass about this, because I do believe it comes out of a different bucket based upon that check mark, am I right? That's why I want us to be better
Not
educated.
necessarily.
No,
I-
not always.
Not always, so I
What
think,
if it reached a different sum?
sorry,
If there was a certain sum that was reached, would it be coming out of a different bucket?
not initially, so if the building.
But it would
committee-
over time, potentially?
Necessarily, though.
So are you thinking in terms of like a
Like a claim.
back charge or claim
I was
to,
thinking in terms of the magnitude of these things.
right, so,
I don't think magnitude is.
yeah, I don't
No,
think we should-
okay.
it really comes down to, so what we do on our.
So either way, whether
we
it's
track
error,
it.
omission, or any of these other things, it's all out of our contingency.
Or the CM.
Or the
Yeah,
CM,
if
or
it's
the,
both related, if it's something that, and there's actually an example here further down, if they show something and we didn't buy it out with a trade, then that comes out of the CM contingency, because if the CM contingency is to protect our GMP.
Right. And if it was of a higher magnitude than something as you identify, what was the railing? $10,000. It was a magnitude of $100,000, would we be identifying that as a claim against somebody's errors and omissions policy? We might pay it out of our contingency, but we then might begin to say, that's somebody else's responsibility,
You have
not
to reach
ours.
a certain, you have to reach a threshold for errors and omissions. I don't know what that's dollar.
right, so we will track those errors and omissions for you, and at the, as we get to a point in the job.
So you'd advise us if there was an error, a place where we begin to say, yes, it's coming out of our contingency, but it might be mitigated against somebody's policy.
Correct.
And that's why we keep track of it, though, it's to keep track of the history of how something originated for auditing purposes, and just so everyone's aware, but it's also to just keep track to see where things started from and where they initiated from.
Well, I do think it is helpful because to be able to track these things, because over time, not that I anticipate this, and I don't also expect that everybody's perfect either. But I do think that it's helpful to understand where the strike zone is and whether something's an error or an omission, or if it's something that the design team needs to do, because I do think there are matters of recourse if it does go in that direction. And I, among everybody here, hopes that it doesn't, but I want to understand where that strike zone is of whether it's error or omission, or if it's falling into a design team of when they need attention. And so your help on that would be greatly appreciated too.
So I
You're
think
the closest thing to the umpire that I think we have and where the strike zone is.
if you got to a point where they wrapped around the building and suddenly the building's in the wrong place, or this piece is not matched and it was you know, due to design, and there was a large cost to bring it back to where it was. I think that's a discussion you're gonna wanna have internally in terms of how you wanna take action. Otherwise, we'll track.
But some of it may be coming out, again, depending upon how this goes, if Nelson's sharing, if I'm hearing what you're saying, there's a possibility that some of this comes out of your contingency, not ours.
Yeah, there will be changes that are scope related, that buyout. That comes out clearly out of our contingency.
They are in the plans and specs, they're designed as, you know, as a approved or submitted, you know, on the building permit drawings. However, the what never got bought out. So they're gonna.
And I'll explain.
But Michael, it's all your money.
Well, yeah, that's.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
The projects,
You hold the
the
fund.
CM
Yeah.
contingency, basically, if they don't use it, it comes back to the owner.
Right.
So at the end of the day, it's all about money. It's
But
just
also
what
know
bucket.
that there are projects that exist right now where a CM blows their budget, and that's on them. We're not gonna keep funding it after that. Know that I feel like everybody's got a nice pool of money that we don't go there, but it does happen, so I just wanna. It's a,
I'm an under budget.
what's that?
I'm under budget.
That's where I wanna be, right, exactly,
Guaranteed maximum.
right.
And if something is coming out of.
And a backstop just in case.
If something
I
is
like
coming out
that.
of construction contingency, it's noted on this cover sheet.
Yeah, we'll get to one.
Yeah, and
Yep.
there's a, I think there's one in this file that has it.
Okay.
Bring up something. Just, I don't know if this is more on the education side, and this is my education hat, but, in the auto shop and wood shop, there are some items on here. I wasn't sure. You guys knew that Perkins could pick up some of these items. Didn't know if that was something that was considered, but cabinets, and, well, then I don't, more from the district side.
No, I think, no, we didn't.
Okay,
I
we're
don't
just,
know who Perkins is, but all of these items would be eligible for reimbursement.
Carl
That's part of it.
Perkins is a grant for CTE courses, so anything in auto shop, culinary, a wood shop, or business education, like you have grant funds, and then you can go in and like, I was able to buy safety cabinets for my
I see.
labs. I would say like the welding curtains that fall in that, I bought in ovens, and I bought in
I see.
dishwashers for my culinary programs, but I mean, that's the thing that you would have to do in September, but I'm just kind of bringing that up here because I know that's another way to like purchase equipment for these areas. If
Yeah.
that funding, and it comes from the state, it's a federal fund.
Well, I think one consideration with outside funding sources like that is when we're audited by the state at the end, they see if we've used other funds and they deduct that from our reimbursement. So it's just, yes, there are things available, but at the end of the day, they're gonna look at, are we getting additional money from somewhere else? Cause they're not gonna give us that money.
There's also, there's labor involved
Yeah.
in this as well, for installation of all the
That's
things.
true,
that it
yes,
has to do,
you
so.
know, I've been a big about that.
So are you saying, Kat, that if we got some of this equipment through a grant, that would come 100% off of the reimbursement, or would it be, you're not obviously getting reimbursed for something you're not spending, that's what I'm.
Right, they audit at the end to
Right.
see if there are other sources that we've used.
Yeah.
Cause they.
So they could subtract that entirely
Yes,
from the.
from the project, totally.
It's kind of like.
And that's what it's done.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, that's if we're done.
Well, it would be double dipping if you say, here's the total project cost, and here's the percent that you're paying, that's not, that you're only paying the percent of what you pay. That's
Yeah,
not-
they see it all as state money, and so then they say, well,
Oh, they see the Gibson station.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Like for instance, Matt
Yeah.
Ross wants to put
Yes.
a lot of
This is a
technology
good
equipment
example.
through eBay, higher reimbursement rates, so we subtracted that out of the construction.
And we put it in capital.
Yeah, that's a good example.
But we wouldn't be allowed to count it towards the total project cost for here because they wouldn't reimburse on it.
Well, just a thought from my end.
Yeah, no, I-
Just wanted to bring that up,
Yeah, no, no.
in case you
No,
have
that's
future
a good-
meetings to look into it.
No more 100,000 plus change orders.
Yeah. That's the lesson.
I hope not. I hope
It's
not.
very complex.
Give you negative.
PR number 14, flagpole lighting fixtures, they're the request for light flagpoles because of the town, the way that they manage the flagpoles so that it's lit up at night. There's multiple light fixtures. It's not just one light fixture, it's 4 light fixtures.
Four flagpole.
4 flagpoles, so separate locations. So it's primarily electrical, but there's also some site work involved to get the electrical out there. That's 21,277. Proposed change order, PCO number 23 was a proposal request number 15 for auditorium movable lighting. From what I understand, it's so that the auditorium has certain performances or the school's theatrical program.
That's right. It's specialty lighting.
In there, but it's specialty lighting that could be moved around. I don't know the specific.
It's another one of those things that could go into an FFE budget, or it just made more sense to include it in your total project.
So this is specifically for the school's theatrical program. So that's 23,069. PCO number 24. This is the one that goes under our contingency, even though we see a dollar amount of 4,365. That's coming off of our contingents, our DLP contingency, the gas turret floor dome. There was some language that we didn't assign it to the millwork contractor, which it's gas turrets. Sometimes it's the plumbing contractor that provides it, but it is part of the millwork spec most often. So pre-construction wise, we did not buy those gas turrets, so we did assign it to the millwork contractor because it was more appropriate for them to furnish it. That's 4,365 out of the OMG GMP contingency. Proposed change order number 26 is 1,152, and it's for adding time clocks in area D team room. So when there's a game taking place, the teams go into the locker room. There's a clock that Bluetooths, or it communicates back to the game clock so that they know the time to get back onto the court. So they're choreographed or coordinated with the actual game clock. So to add these in the fitness areas or the team rooms, it is 1,152. Next one is a credit, but the scope of work is actually a large scope of work. It's for the millwork. It's a typical classroom section. There were some cabinets that were eliminated and others that were added in. That resulted in a net credit, small credit of $547. Michael, is there anything to add? It's basically adding some wardrobe cabinets, I believe, or
No, it's around the perimeter of a typical classroom. There's some counters and base cabinets. Again, as we advance the FF&E design, the teachers in general said rather than a one seat or a single teacher or para to sit at to do the work, it'd be nice if he or she could sit in parallel with the student. So we needed to create another adjacent E space. So it's a balance of deleting some cabinet, pushing more cabinets further down. But that's a typical thing that repeats in all 40 some odd classrooms you have. It netted out as a savings, but it was again, this was an advancement that was done in coordination with the overall FF&E design of the untethered pieces of furniture. So, and it was caught before it was built, so we're doing the revision with the outside.
so with the add and deduct, so it's an overall credit of $547. And then the last PCO, again, it's the delta is $485. But previously there was a fire shutter change order that instead of having fire shutters to protect the windows. A sprinkler head was installed, which that was approved previously, but there was one window that you couldn't achieve that because of the center mullion with the UL listing. You have to actually reduce the window size. So TSKP reduced the window size. When you reduce the window, it's less to the window contractor, but you have more brick, you have more metal stud, some more air vapor barrier. So in aggregate, it was with the credits, it ended up being a $485 PCO. But with all those changes, there were various trade contractors that got affected. There's also more drywall as well. They got a small window. On that. Any others that? Sorry about the long list. It's like
I mean, just
I can't guarantee time, but
to remind the committee that the decision-making group does review the price of their authority at the 25,000. Anything about that really does require before we can move forward.
But the ones that are over the decision-making group's threshold, we do run them through the decision-making group. We ask questions, we send them back and forth. So even though they don't have the authority to approve them to move forward, they are vetting them and doing the due diligence on them.
They'll hit a lot of revisions before they hit here.
All right, any additional questions, clarification? Anything else? Good. All right, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, motion passes. Go on to item G3. Can I get a motion to authorize the town manager to sign an amendment to the professional services agreement with PSKP Studio in the amount of $12,240 for additional design services? Motion.
Second.
We'll open this up for discussion and just a little bit more detail on this. Probably not what was referred to, I think, earlier.
Actually, Michael, if I could ask you to do that, I know you've been close to it. There are 6 areas of the building that we were asked to look at. Again, with the FF&E and interiors efforts that have been put forward, there was some reconsideration of some areas, including the media center, for example. So, Michael, if you don't mind.
Sure. So, well, I mean, I think you just said it. There are 6 areas, although one of them is on hold. It's the central office, while which will meet in August. I waited until Scott left the room, so there's some repartitioning that may occur in the floor plan of the central office design. But in this area, we were deleting some of the private office and staff offices in the media center to create a space that's more akin to the space we're in right now. The alternative high school rather than a built-in millwork piece. Well, there's actually no charge for that, so I'll skip over that one. In the special ed department, rather than a dedicated office for the occupational and physical therapy staff, is going to be integrated into that room. So this deletion of that office and partitioning. There's no charge associated with the whiteboard tech board. And the largest hours are coming out of the area D athletic space, where on deeper review and looking at the equipment list for the FF&E portion of the project, the educational and athletic staff has requested a dedicated stack washer and dryer in area D that matches closely what's out in the field house, and an ice maker so that sports teams can fill up their water bottles before they take the field, rather than use, say, the personal trainers ice, which he or she's really going to need should one of those individuals come off the field. So those we're going to have to fold that into the architecture as we build it. But this is for not to, these are changes that we're not exactly sure how much it's going to take. There's a listing of deliverables in that column. What we've decided to do is track it hourly to you as not to exceed. There's a component for TSKP to generate the floor plans and ceiling plans, and then Kohler Ronan will have to document new reflected ceiling plans, new power plans, and in this last instance, new plumbing plans. Make sure that the changes can be adequately incorporated. Once we document it, we'll give all of that to O&G. We'll issue those sketches, those floor plans, plumbing plans, reflected ceiling plans, get pricing from the various subs and come to you with an aggregated change. So this is a professional services edition only at this time.
And I do want to add that the decision-making group has reviewed this along the way, offered some comments about potentially location of the washer and dryer and all of these things. So they did review all of these and then they said, okay, let's see what the price would be for design. And then it came back, it's under the decision-making group's threshold. So they did review and look into that. So bringing it here is to do the formal paperwork to sign off on it and go with it. And then like Michael just said, it then gets priced out and you might see, we'll see change orders. That will then go through our typical process back to the decision-making group, finance subcommittee, and then here. So this is basically, we have to do the design in order to get the fees. We need the drawings and the designs.
That's
So,
right. That's. When we
long
were talking about this, we felt it necessary that we couldn't make a decision on whether the changes should go through, because there's definitely value to those changes till we know what they cost, but we can't price them out till we have it signed. So we're basically spending some money to get the designs done, just to see, and then see where the prices land. And, you know, if they seem fair at that time, we'll discuss them and yada, yada. So there's more to go, but we definitely have to do this part before we do the next part.
You, Nelson, have any idea the ballpark of it? No.
Till I have something that
Gotcha.
says.
That's the way to play that answer.
No, I think I'll have a dart at it, but you're not gonna like the numbers.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well,
Honestly,
liking or not liking, I wonder too, do you carry in your bookkeeping, so we have all of our approved PCOs, do you carry a PCO, like a budgeted? Wouldn't be that typical?
Yeah, we normally do. So
That's not, we don't have anything that's in
because I
there.
don't have anything to go on.
Okay, but do we have anything in the budgeted plan change orders, project change orders now? Nothing.
With cost that haven't approved.
We have a
Right.
list
Nothing
of,
that's-
we have a list of PCOs that are, I think you've titled it under review.
Okay, so we've got more planned, as you guys were asking the question. We know there's more.
Yeah.
Yeah, we review those to always.
To when it's done and beyond that. right?
Typically, when we see something come through, RFI response or something is initiated as far as a change, we'll put a number on it. An educated guess, you know, so throwing the number. The scope of work is not physically explained. I really can't, me putting a number would not be a service to anybody.
So just so you know, when we discuss this, one of them is removing some walls in one of the library areas. And you don't, it's fine to say, okay, I can get those walls removed, I'm gonna get a credit, but where's the electrical go? Do we have to move the electrical? Is the electrical already ordered? Does it, you know, is there a different way they're laying out the desks? Like, there's a lot involved until we know what that design looks like.
Right.
And the school system obviously is looking at redesigning this area because they think it would work better for them. We don't even know exactly how that is, and that's really what it, so it's seed money to try to investigate it a little bit better. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't love it, but I never do, but it's necessary. At this point, at least we agreed as a decision-making group that it was necessary to move forward with these design costs in order to better figure out what it is we're.
And all these things were brought up by people like Kathy Greener, Kim Wen. Just like,
Don't misunderstand the way I'm asking it. I'm all for it and it's got my vote. What I'm trying to figure out is when you identify that we you start with 6.2 and now we're at 6.1. That's among everything that is approved.
Right.
We know that behind that,
Yeah.
there exists
Yeah.
not only things that are already approved, PCOs, but we still are refining the costs.
That was my.
But there also exist these kinds of things, so,
And then this comes out of your owner contingency as well.
so it
That
might be helpful.
6.1 number includes that 12,000.
That I understand, that I
Okay,
understand,
yeah,
it's the things beyond it that we're not in, so it might be helpful in future reports, if you know. To be able to say there's a range that sits beyond this,
Yeah, we're-
present, that might be 500,000, or it might be $1 million,
We
or
are
it might be just $20,000.
We are working on a total change log, so you'll be able to see
Perfect, that's,
what's been
And there's
approved,
different
what's
status.
pending, and what's in the pipeline.
that's the purpose of my question, not this, I'm all,
Yeah,
it's right to do it.
We'll review those, we review them every week with the OAC meeting, so I think one good thing that comes out of that is that, like, for example, for the center analysis, well, we know that this is potentially coming. So I'm gonna pump the brakes on our framer, just give me something that I can give to our framer and say, don't frame your walls before I gotta take it down.
Good
This is
point.
one
So like,
example.
at, I don't know if it was the last one or the one before OAC meeting, Michael stayed behind to work with George Gibbons. So he could mark up a plan and say, don't frame these walls yet. So this is urgent. Please say yes.
We're not gonna, we're not.
It's already there.
We're not. But in this, the concept of this, just so I'm clear, is, and although we're approving it in this manner for the design piece of the total, these would be separate change orders that would come through the, meaning this is an all or nothing thing. Would you come back with, here's the design cost for all of these, we can say yes or no to the pieces of the work that we can.
You will pay us, you are authorizing us in Kohler Road to spend up to $12,000 in professional fees.
Correct.
To delineate these exhibits that you can buy a la carte.
Correct, that's, I just wanted to make
Yes.
sure everybody was clear on that, although we're having the discussion right now, for the design fees around all of this work,
Yes.
we're gonna get cost for each of those components individually, and then we make a decision.
That's correct.
All right, any other questions or thoughts around that? All right, all in favor, opposed? All right, motion passed.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so almost last item, can I get a motion to cancel the August 2nd?
So
Or
moved.
2nd? Second. All right, all in favor?
Hey,
All right. Any other business? I think you got it all. I think you got it all. All right, can I have a motion to adjourn? Motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We'll adjourn at 6:38.